Hello and welcome to this session. So we started looking at this play by Arthur Miller, All My Sons, and we started looking at the setting of the play and how it is set in the backyard of Keller home, who are also the central protagonists throughout this play. And while introducing the play, we were also trying to compare this play with Death of a Salesman, the play which we have already discussed, though chronologically this play, All My Sons, come earlier than Death of a Salesman. In some sense, it's easier to set the stage for discussion in terms of the frameworks, in terms of the thematic construction, in terms of the locations of different themes and different value systems which are being challenged, which are being corroborated. It's always convenient to begin the discussion with Death of a Salesman and then come back to this play. So that's what we have done in this course as well. So here what we notice is that the setting never really changes. It continues to remain in the backyard of the Keller home in the outskirts of an American town, which conveniently remains unnamed, so that it could be just about any town. So the focus is on how the characters experience and remember certain events, and as we have noticed in the beginning, there is a very mundane way in which, there's a very ordinary way in which the play begins. It's a lazy Sunday morning and the newspaper is being read and different kinds of discussions around it. We are being introduced to Keller and the kind of temperament that he has and how he is, there are these different discussions about how they think about, how they respond to the newspaper, about how it is more interesting to look at the ads and to look at what people want. Yeah, so it's also introducing us to another side of the post-war period, which is getting increasingly consumerist in nature. And some of the old timers, like the Keller families, particularly Joe Keller, finding it a bit difficult to situate himself in this ever-changing circumstances. For instance, in the last session, we saw how Keller finds it very amusing that people are wanting old dictionaries, paying high prices, and there is a sense of nostalgia over here. There is a sense of this longing to go back into a past which one can never inhabit again, one can never claim again. Yeah, so there are these sorts of discussions which set the stage for this play as well. And as it progresses, quite in the early stage of the play itself, in the first act itself, it begins by this reference to an awful wind which was there last night and how it made the tree fall. Yeah, so there are we'll quickly go through this. Hey, what happened to your tree? And that awful wind must have got it last night. You heard the wind, didn't you? Yeah, I got a mess in my yard too. What a pity. What did Kate say? Kate is Kate is Joe Keller's wife, who's also referred to as a mother throughout the play. And they're all asleep. I'm just waiting for her to see it. Yeah? And now there's a sudden reference to Larry. And we get to know over here that Larry was born in August. He'd be 27 this month. There's a sense of loss over here. He's no longer with them. He would be 27 this month, and his tree blows down. So we do see some intricate connection between the tree. The tree, has fallen the previous night, and Larry, who would have been 27 this month. And we also know that, the sense of time, the sense of seasons, month, all of those things we find are increasingly accentuated. Dates are getting increasingly accentuated. But on the other hand, we find that certain larger details, such as, where exactly this town is and what kind of, where exactly the others are in terms of the exact locations, the regional locations, a lot of details are kept away from the audience, but such finer details to locate it in a very nuanced way they are being given. Yeah, so I'm surprised you remember his birthday, Frank. That's nice. Well, I'm working on his horoscope. Yeah, so something very jarring about the introduction of the horoscope right over here. How can you make him a horoscope? That's for future, ain't it? Well, I'm doing what I'm doing is this, see, Larry was reported missing on November 25th, right? Yeah. So again, look at the relevance of the dates over here. Dates, days, seasons, time, they become extremely important. Well, we assume that if he was killed, it was on November 25th. Now, what Kate wants, so Kate asked you to make a horoscope. yes, what she wants to find out is whether November 25th was a favorable day for Larry. What is that favorable day? A favorable day for a person is a fortunate day according to the stars. In other words, it would be practically impossible for him to have died on his favorable day. So there are these multiple things coming together, the tree falling, the horoscope being discussed, and we know that Larry is someone who is allegedly who has died, and he would have turned 27 this month, and there is some contestation about whether he has really died or not. We are not privy to a lot of these inner details over here, which we assume, the audience also get a sense of the kind of tension that is building over here. So here I also want to reiterate this point that this play is more about a slow revelation of details. So it's quite like, it has a very Ibsenian character about it, like Doll's House. If you would remember, some of you might be familiar with that play, you would notice that there is nothing majorly dramatic which happens most of the time. It's a slow revelation of facts. So, and we get to the information, and sometimes in piecemeal, you need to put things together. So that's what happens in this play entirely. And it's also useful to remember that Miller was heavily influenced by the European dramatists, by the European tradition, and we find that, there is a lot of Ibsenian quality about the stage techniques, about the movement of the play, about the projections in the play. So here we find that there is no major action which happens in the play. Nothing really happens over here. No one dies, no one, nothing catastrophic happens, but it is the post-event time, which also is very pertinent given that this is a post-war play. So there were a lot of major catastrophic, tumultuous things which happened during the war. In the same way, there are a lot of things which happened in the personal lives of these characters, and they are trying to make sense of things in a very gradual way, and that slowness seeps into this play's movement as well. And this slowness is something, which becomes a character over here as well. There are these long drawn dialogue. Sometimes, there will be page long exchanges even without revealing anything much. And what makes this tension all the more palpable is the fact that as an audience we know that the characters are aware of, they have more information than that we have. So there is this eagerness that the play invites from the part of the reader, from the part of the audience as and when it progresses. So here we know that something really tragic, something very momentous had happened in that family, and that is a source of tension over here. And yes, so Frank is also now revealing one of the central premises of this play, which is also a central point which is contested within the family. The point is, now if November 25th was his favorable day, then it's completely possible he's alive somewhere, because it's possible. So he notices Jim now. Jim is looking at him as though at an idiot. To Jim with an uncertain laugh, I didn't even see you. So Keller, is he talking sense? Jim, he's all right. He's completely out of his mind, that's all. The trouble with you is you don't believe in anything. The trouble and your trouble is that you believe in anything. So this is also another point of departure over here, another point of contest in this play. There are a set of characters who don't want to believe in anything, another set of characters who want to believe in just about anything. It also showcases the crisis of those times where one is either trying to run away from existing belief systems or, trying to run towards belief systems which are really not there. So it also showcases in very telling ways the crisis which was there after the war. And this crisis gets presented in American drama in a slightly different way than it does in the European or in the British settings, because the involvement of America in the war was also of a slightly different nature. So the kind of trauma that gets inflicted on them is also of a very different nature altogether. And there is also this heightened sense of irony in terms of one does not know what kind of a value system to place their hopes on, whether it is the consumerist, the American dream towards which the nation is evidently moving, or are there like the old world traditions which are not there anymore. So this dilemma, this dichotomy is there at the heart of most of the plays that we will be discussing throughout this course. There's also this sudden excitement about the kids playing different games, like doctor game, the police game. Yeah, so this also becomes something much more than a game. We realize in this play where everything reminds the family of something unpleasant which happened in the past. Everything reminds them of something which should not be reminded them of at all. So we find that yeah, there's also this the sense of skepticism about how to look at different vocations. Yeah, here there are these comparisons between the doctor's profession, and then Jim makes this very sarcastic statement, I would love to help humanity on a Warner Brothers salary. So there is also this sense of movement that we get, sense of departures that we get in terms of an entire society, a number of families, a number of individuals trying to grapple with the changing order of economic things, changing order of value system, where it's unable to make a decision whether it is helping humanity and being a doctor and being on a lower pay scale. Is that something that one should ideally do, or should one go for a more lucrative kind of profession in the corporate sector, like the Warner Brothers are being mentioned over here. So we do find these markers extremely important over here, and we find this being the tone which is set even in the beginning of the play, where the newspaper also becomes a site where human wants, human need for different objects, for different desires, for different modes of consumption. It gets articulated in the newspaper. It becomes less of a, particularly for Joe Keller, it becomes less of an information disseminating tool than a place where you see the changing nature of human desires, changing nature of human consumption modes. So and now there is another important moment which is revealed over here, where they're excited about Annie's arrival, and we will very soon see that she is more like a trigger of a lot of unpleasant memories. She's more like a trigger in this play rather than a central character, though she helps the plot move ahead in very central ways. So we picked her up on the 1 o'clock train last night. Wonderful thing, girl leaves here a scrawny kid. A couple of years go by, she's a regular woman, hardly recognized her, and she was running in and out of this yard all her life. That was a very happy family, used to live in your house, Jim. Yeah. So again, with every discussion, with every conversation over here, we increasingly get the sense that there are a lot of things that we are not aware of, yeah, which is why I mentioned the slow revelation of details right at the beginning. So we know that there's a backstory to every conversation, to every character, and there's a sense of loss about it, a sense of nostalgia about it, and also a sense of pain about it. So there was a very happy family used to live in your house. Yeah. So so the new neighbors, Jim, he's also saying, I like to meet her. The block can use a pretty girl. In the whole neighborhood, there's not a damn thing to look at, except my wife, of course. Yeah. So Jim's wife enters. She's rounding 40, an overweight woman who fears it on seeing her. Yeah, right. So this is the context again. It's a very unhappy kind of, a very ordinary, a very regular neighborhood. Yeah. And Joe Keller is also talking about, reminiscing about those times where happy children used to be in the block, yeah, where a happy family used to live right next door. There are also, these very ordinary, very mundane conversations about the toaster being off again, and they are also, making fun of how Lydia had plugged it wrong. Yeah, so there's a lot of ordinariness, as we can see in this play as you read through, and these details, even when they are not really taking the action forward. Yeah, we get to know a lot about the characters, a lot about how nothing much happens in their day-to-day lives, and how the events which happened before, and some of the characters who visit them during the course of this play, how that becomes extremely important when they are penetrating into this ordinariness. Yeah, and there's a pattern, there is a predictability to the way in which they are dealing with things. And also, if you recall in the beginning, there's a tree which falls. Yeah, that is also something slightly out of the ordinary, and that becomes something around which a lot of memory triggers, around which a lot of emotional turmoil also develops. Yeah, so in so many ways, there are a set of characters over here. There's a family over here who we get to know that they have had a very tough life, a very enriching life too in some sense, but there is a stalemate that they are dealing with now. Yeah, there are a lot of things are even within the family, due to their belief systems, due to what they want to believe in and what they choose to believe in, they are also being torn in different directions. Yeah, so we do get a sense of this emotional ambience over here, the emotional crisis over here, without really knowing the details. So now there's another character. We again get to know there's some backstory, like Annie, who had spent childhood in the neighborhood, as we get to know. Is she still unhappy, Joe? So now, there is some emotional history over there. Annie, I don't suppose she goes around dancing on her toes, but she seems to be over it. So this it'll take some time for us to get to this it that, she seems to be over. Is she going to get married? Is there anybody? I suppose, say it's a couple of years already. She can't mourn a boy forever. So here, we can also put the 2 and 2 together and see perhaps it is Larry. Perhaps, Larry's death that they presume she is now over with. It's so strange. Annie's here. We're not even married. And I've got 3 babies. I always thought it'd be the other way around. Yeah. So there's a lot of backstory, as I reiterate over here, and how this play productively uses all those information. Yeah. So nothing really becomes jarring. Things come in at the right time and fall into place like a perfect puzzle. Well, that's what a war does. Yeah. So now this is one of the more heart-wrenching dialogues from this play. That's what a war does. I had 2 sons, now I got 1. It changed all the tallies. In my day, when you had sons, it was an honor. Today, a doctor could make $1 million if he could figure out a way to bring a boy into the world without a trigger finger. Yeah. So this is about how war changed all tallies. Yeah. And look at how he is getting into this number game over here. There were 2 sons and now he has got 1. It's just about the changing figures. Yeah. And this way in which, it makes the pain all the more tangible when he is talking about death in such clinical terms, in terms of the numbers, in terms of the tallies. Yeah, after the war, the numbers do not tally anymore. The number of members who were in the family originally have reduced. They don't have the same number of children within the families anymore. Because of the war. Yeah, so it's also a very euphemistic way of talking about death, which this play does a lot. Yeah, there is a lot of death here right from the beginning. That is, death is always there in the background. Yeah, as a memory, as a reality, as an experience that characters are struggling to come to terms with in different ways. But it is also something which is never referred to directly. Yeah, no one refers to the death, but death becomes the presence, the presence or the absence of death, the acceptance as well as the rejection of death becomes a major theme, becomes some of the major themes around with the play, around which the play moves. So now Chris enters. Chris watches her off. He's 32. Like his father, solidly built, a listener, a man capable of immense affection and loyalty. He has a cup of coffee in one hand, a part of a donut in another. Do you want the paper? That's all right, just the book section. Yeah. So see this similarity between father and son, where the son just wants a book section, yeah, and the father just wants to see the ad section. Yeah, he bends down and pulls out part of the paper on porch floor. You're always reading the book section and you never buy a book. I like to keep abreast of my ignorance. What is that? Every week a new book comes out. Lots of new books, all different, all different. Yeah, so very cryptic conversation, but very, very revealing too. Yeah, in terms of how both of them are trying to find refuge in understanding others' lives in some sense. Both of them are trying to find refuge by moving away towards those parts of a newspaper where real information is not there, where information which would affect their lives are not there at all. It's a some kind of an escapism which is also validated on a regular basis, on a daily basis. Keller and Chris are also discussing about the tree now. So Joe Keller is more worried about what's mother going to say, Kate. So in between, now the kids are also there, Bert and Tommy, where they are also playing with their father's thermometer. So like mentioned, there are a lot of these kids games about them playing doctor, them playing police, which are also reminders of a number of things, ugly things which happened in their life before. So Bert wants to see the jail, and we do know that that's like a secret game between the kids, Bert and Tommy and Keller, which we eventually see that Kate, the mother, does not really approve of it at all. So and all of these terms, the cellar windows, the jail, the gun, the arresting gun, the act of getting arrested, and being a detective, and also going after criminals, all of these things have a lot of implications for the family. So which is why very soon we will find that Kate, the mother, when she's awake, she almost overreacts and sends the kids away. In the middle of the kids' games, Keller and Chris come back to discussing the tree again. Maybe we ought to tell her before she sees it. But Chris is more perceptive than Keller here, we find. How could she? She saw it. How could she see it? I was the first one up. She was still in bed. She was out here when it broke. When? About 4 this morning, indicating a window above them. I heard it cracking and I woke up and looked out. She was standing right there when it cracked. What was she doing out here 4 in the morning? I don't know. When it cracked, she ran back into the house and cried in the kitchen. Did you talk to her? No, I figured the best thing was to leave her alone. She cried hard. I could hear her right through the floor of my room. What was she doing out here at that hour? Chris silent with an undertone of anger showing. She's dreaming about him again. She's walking around at night. So there are a lot of unspeakable things in this family. They all know what they are referring to. As an audience, we are slowly getting a sense of what is happening. We get to we can put again the pieces of the puzzle together. It's about Larry, who supposedly had died, but some of them are not sure whether he had actually died. He would have turned 27 this month. So she's getting just like after he died. What's the meaning of that? I don't know the meaning of it, but I know one thing, that we made a terrible mistake with mother. So this terrible mistake, it comes back to haunt all of them in different ways, including the mother. What? Being dishonest with her. So there's also a way in which truth and some kind of a tampering with truth just for emotional comfort, that is being that gets discussed in this play. The kind of thing always pays off, and now it's paying off. What do you mean dishonest? So Chris here comes across one of the characters who are down to earth, who are practical, and who wants to get back on track with life. Who wants to not really move away from the past, but to acknowledge the past and then move on. That's something that he's unable to do when he is staying rooted in this family. And unlike many in his generation, we will also see he does stay extremely rooted, extremely attached to his family. So that is another thing. If we could quickly make a comparison between All My Sons and Death of a Salesman, we find that those boys, they even Willy Loman's boys, they also find it a bit difficult to entirely move away from their domestic space. In so many ways, they find that the ties, it is it's more dramatic over there in terms of the kind of emotional turmoils that Willy Loman's sons go through, and it's a more kind of a troubled relationship. So if at all we try and compare these two spaces, the relation between the parents and children, we find that these children in both these places, they find it a bit difficult to move on. They are still stuck in their past. Willingly sometimes, unwillingly sometimes. There is so much about the past, there is so much baggage that they find it very difficult to move on. And sometimes the baggage of expectation, and in this case it is this baggage of certain memories, certain unpleasant, tragic things which happen in the family, which all of them are not able to collectively acknowledge. or even and since it is not acknowledged, they are unable to deal with it as well. So yeah, so what is this dishonesty that Chris is talking about? Larry is not coming back, and I know it. Why do we allow her to go on thinking that we believe her? What do you want to do, argue with her? I don't want to argue with her, but it's time she realized that nobody believes Larry is alive anymore. Why shouldn't she dream of him, walk the nights waiting for him? Do we contradict her? Do we say straight out that we have no hope anymore, that we haven't had any home for years now? You can't say that to her. We've got to say it to her. How are you going to prove it? Can you prove it? For God's sake, 3 years. So we're getting more and more details about how hung up this mother is about the fact that her son maybe did not die after all, yeah, and we really don't know what exactly transpired in these 3 years, but we get to know from Chris that he is struggling to, he really wants to come back to a normal life, to have a normal home, yeah, and this perhaps is one of those very rare moments when even the father and son, they're having a candid discussion about it, and it's exactly over here that their discomfort with the newspapers are also coming out. So it entirely makes sense that one of them, the father, Joe Keller, he prefers to go to the ad section the moment the newspaper comes, and Chris, he wants to go to the book section. Yeah, they do not want to read the news per se, and this is perhaps the reason for it as well. The trouble is the goddamn newspapers. Every month some boy turns up from nowhere. So the next one is going to be Larry. Yeah, so this is also another post-war crisis where a lot of missing people are again beginning to show up. There are a number of such stories which superficially will look like very positive, very encouraging stories, but it is also a sense of false hope which gets heightened in a number of families, leading to a crisis, leading to a lot of crisis like this. Yeah, so this is also this play is also giving an alternate perspective to these sort of otherwise promising new stories of hope, which could become a sense of which could accentuate the stalemate situation in each within each families. So right, so now they are also they're coming back briefly to talk about Annie. Why I asked Annie here, don't you? He knows, but why? Well, I got an idea, but what's the story? I'm going to ask her to marry me. Well, that's only your business, Chris. It's not only my business. What do you want me to do? You're old enough to know your mind. So there's some similarity again here we find between Joe Keller and Willy Loman. They are deeply interested in their children's lives, but they also want to distance themselves from their kids and give them a sense that they are individuals who can make their decisions. While in a technical sense, while in a theoretical sense, it seems to hold water, we realize that when they are actually going about their daily lives, that sense of agency, that sense of individualism is not really given to the children. The Chris in this case and the two boys in Death of a Salesman, we find that they are eternally bound in some form or the other with the expectations of their parents, yeah, and due to financial reasons, practical reasons, emotional reasons, they find it difficult to walk away from that. So here, Chris, a grown-up man, he is asking for his father's permission to marry a certain woman, Annie, and who there seems to be much more than just marriage between two adults. There's a lot of things here at stake, which is why they are having this discussion at length. And again, I want you to notice the pattern of the how very slowly information gets disseminated over here, and sometimes there's just a build up and we are left without much we aren't given too many leads to put the pieces together. So here we can say, well, you want to be sure mother isn't going to, then it just isn't my business. I'm just saying, sometimes you infuriate me, that. Isn't it your business too if I tell this to mother and she throws a fit about it? You have such a talent for ignoring things. Yeah. So while Willy Loman seems entirely involved trying to make a quick comparison between these two plays, since both are critiquing the American dream in different ways. We find that both Willy Loman as well as Joe Keller over here, they both ignore certain very pertinent things. They are deeply interested, they have deeply invested as well as interested in some of the nitty-gritties of in their children's lives. They spend a lot of time getting into such details, the mundane details. But when it comes to the larger scheme of things, they also have this propensity, such a talent, as he rightly puts it over here, such a talent for ignoring things. I ignore what I got to ignore. The girl is Larry's girl. Yeah, so that makes it clearer for us. This is what the tension is all about. Yeah, Annie is used to be Larry's girl, and now when Chris and Annie are in a relationship, that could potentially emerge into a crisis, because Kate, Chris's mother, still believes that Larry is alive. Larry is not dead yet. Yeah, so this is extremely complicated at so many levels, and there is absolutely no way in which any individual can resolve this at the moment, because it's largely in the minds of the characters too. The crisis, the presence, the absence, yeah, the truth, the imagination, the fiction, everything happens in the minds of these characters. Yeah, so through a realist point of view, by using a number of realist and expressionist techniques, yeah, we are also being shown how reality and what happens as an illusion in the minds and the character's mind, they are also being fused together over here. So from mother's point of view, he's not dead and you have no right to take his girl. You can now go on from there if you know where to go, but I'm telling you, I don't know where to go. See, I don't know. Now what can I do for you? I don't know why it is, but every time I reach out for something I want, I have to pull back because other people will suffer. My whole bloody life, time after time after time. Yeah, you're a considerate fella, nothing wrong in that. To hell with that. Yeah, so we will stop at this point, and again a very quick reference to a comparative note between All My Sons and Death of a Salesman. All characters we find, they are attached to their families, the father, the son, yeah, the mother, yeah. So they're all very attached to their families, and they deeply care for what the family needs, for the individual needs. They want the best for each other. They want to be a source of comfort for each other. But they are also, there's also this deep-seated resentment that in each character, whether it's the father or the son, there is also this deep-seated resentment that they have been doing things for each other. But irrespective of that, nothing gets improved. Yeah. So here we do not find the family facing any major financial difficulty, and we do get a sense of a family who has struggled much but achieved much too. But there are a lot of unresolved issues. So despite the closeness that we find in both these families, in Willy Loman's family as well as in Joe Keller's family, despite the close-knit nature, there are a lot of unspeakable things. There's a lot of baggage, emotional baggage, real baggage, which they do not have a vocabulary to deal with. The space which is there available in plenty in terms of, the space that the characters share is never lends itself to any such discussion which would potentially lead to a resolution, right? So we stop with this for today, and we will come back to continue with Act 1 of this play, All My Sons. Thank you for your attention, and I look forward to seeing you in the next session.